this one was like, it's like, what the hell is this? And then even like they all have like, the guy freaks the fuck out, of course. Blah, blah, you know?
He's like, he's followed the way of Paracelsus and Aristotle.
That was sick, yeah.
Is the alchemy, you know, fucking so awesome.
Good afternoon, my name is Jonathan. Welcome to Jared to Jared. On this week's episode, the Jareds will discuss Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, Alejandro Jodorowsky, Alchemy and The Cult, Lilly Rose Depp's Privilege, and much, much more. Welcome to the show.
I guess I just immediately get averted to commercialization of someone who I feel lacked in a lot of scenes with her acting.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit overacted, you know, I don't know, like a lot of, and not just the convulsion scenes, which, you know, Robert Eggers-esque. But I think what she really lacked is when they got deep down to having her do dialogue.
Yeah.
It was just really like, oh, I don't think that, you know, it was like too much. I don't know. It was too much. It seemed to me like it was like, great, here we go. Freaking Trump story. We got a kid whose famous dad is overselling her worth in this movie. And now freaking one of the best directors who used to be now the fucking dude has bought into it, which I think she's fine, whatever. I would have much rather seen like Jenna Ortega or Kirsten Stewart. That'd been amazing in the role like that, you know. Anna Taylor-Joy, even Mad Max. Anyways, I'm going on a rant here.
Yeah, I could see not Jenna Ortega. She's too like Gen Z or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like Jenna Ortega is too like TikTok-y. I don't know.
For similar reasons as I'm complaining about.
Yeah. I could see Kristen Stewart, actually. I could totally see that. Yeah.
Oh, if Kristen Stewart was in it, that'd have been the best movie ever made.
I could see that.
I also love her so much. She's top of my pillar. Yeah.
Yeah. Lily Rose Depp looks like if Johnny Depp asexually reproduced and had a daughter.
Which is not attractive.
Well, I was kind of attracted to her. I don't know.
All right, I guess. I mean, I like the whole goth appeal. Anyways, let's get
if I was dating Lily Rose Depp and like brought her over to your house to hang out, would you insult her to her face? Would you be like, would you insult my new girlfriend Lily Rose Depp?
No, that's just mean. Not an asshole. I'd be like, this is Jared's new girlfriend, you know, whatever. Kind of bizarre. No, that's the thing is she would be fine. I'm not saying there's anything particularly wrong with her. It'd be like, cool, Jared like met some like strange like New York chick. She's pretty cool, whatever, you know. Kind of frog looking, but you know, he likes her. She works for him. But like, I think the over romanticization of her acting abilities. And being given such a freaking prominent badass role as the lead character in Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, it was too much for me. It was too much. We should have met Kirsten Stewart.
As far as that goes, like the acting, I did feel that there was like for most of the movie, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, it just felt stunted or something, not fully fleshed out. Like it almost felt like I don't know. You could tell when it's shitty acting. Like I remember there's a scene where they're just like on the beach or something like early in the movie before things really start flaring up. And she's talking to her friend about like her convulsions and how she's sick or something. And I was like, you're trying too hard. You're not like it almost felt like there's separation between the actor and the character. And you don't want that. You want the actor and the character to fuse into one being, you know? Yeah. Like in all these Shakespeare's we've been watching with like, you know, incredible actors. It's like the actor disappears into the role.
Right.
You know, it's like Laurence Olivier no longer exists. There's just Hamlet, you know?
Sure.
Like that sort of thing, Kenneth Branagh or whatever. But it's like there you're like, oh yeah, like the actor is overshadowing the character.
Right.
And you don't want that, you know?
No.
Yeah.
You know,
there were
it's funny
scenes like later where she like definitely I don't know. She did have some good parts, but go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. I'm not saying it was a total loss.
Yeah.
Because the role is also, a woman of this era where they're like, suffering from melancholy and, it's an archetype in literature.
Yeah.
And in storytelling. But it's interesting that you say there's this sort of discord, or you used a good word there. But there's a disconnect between it just like between in the story itself. Let's even take that scene, for instance. She's talking about convulsions, this and that. Then they go off to the side, husband and wife, and they're talking this and that. And then next thing you know, she's screaming and she's in the water, like convulsing, like, DJ Dallas in the water. And then they just cut the scene, and there was like nothing to that. Like there was no like connection to it. Was like there was a lot of like, shock value, like, did that freak you out in your seat? Anyways, let's go back to this other scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like there was no it didn't like resonate with the actors too. It's funny you say you really like William Dafoe's character.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just like, it felt like he was not connected with the doctor. Even when he first sees Lilly Rose Depp, when she's in the bed and he's like, oh my God, like take off these restraints, my girl, don't be. It just didn't seem like he was into it. Like if you go and watch The Lighthouse, you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not the Lighthouse. Yeah.
He's possessed to it's not even him. He's just a vessel. Definitely. At that point in this movie, it was very much him. I don't know. It just seemed like he was trying to connect onto Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of Van Helsing and other portrayals and other different versions of the film of Dracula. And I felt not only a discord with the actors, but also the story a lot of the times. I don't know. Did you feel that way?
So here's what's coming to mind. All right. So I saw it with a buddy of mine, this guy, Nick, and like movie ends. And then Nick turns to me and he was just like, that was terrible. And started laughing, Yeah. And I was like, dude, I loved it. It had like a huge emotional impact on me. Right.
Okay.
Now I think what was going on there, is because like I think both of those opinions are valid. I think Nick was right. He was like, this movie sucked for a kid. The plot was off. The characters are off. All this, right?
Right.
I think the impact it had on me was because of my own personal niche interests in things like alchemy. It had like that's why I liked Willem Dafoe, was all this stuff about like alchemy and this kind of like I don't know, spiritual freedom and all this sort of stuff. And then Nosferatu as like I could see like a Jungian Carl Jung kind of like reading of it, where like Nosferatu is like the shadow, and the shadow needs to be integrated into the consciousness and all that kind of stuff. So that stuff I love. That had a huge impact on me. I was literally getting chills during the movie. I was like, holy shit, I was like, I see it, I get it, it's just all of those moments. I get it. That said, if I step away from my own kind of, just sort of like whatever my own resonance is with it, and just look at it purely in terms of plot, purely in terms of like character development and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. Not great. It's like, especially in terms of Robert Eggers, it's like The Lighthouse is freaking amazing. He did The Witch too.
The Witch. Yeah.
The Witch is absolutely incredible. And what those two films do so well in the writing is he fully embodies this weird language that just isn't our own, and like the Lighthouse, they're talking like these 19th century sailors. Like you believe it. They read like characters right out of Moby Dick or something, Sure. Or in The Witch, it's like they're using the language of like pure.
Literally can't understand what they're saying in The Witch. That's how wild the language is. Yeah.
And it's so well done. It's incredible. This one was like, it's like, what the hell is this? And then even like they all had these like British accents, right? But they're in Germany, right? They're in Germany. but then they have like British accents or something, which I guess is just to convey to an American audience, like, well, they're not in America, they're somewhere else. And it's just like, well,
sure. It was the
fucking
chocolate thing with the accents.
yeah, exactly. It was like, okay, well, we're not going to do German accents because that could be kind of distracting or weird for an American audience who has no connection to Germany. But we also want to convey that this is the 19th century and that it's kind of this like Dickens era thing in Europe. So we're going to have everyone have like British Cockney accents, even though that's not the correct country or placement or anything like that. Where if they just leaned into it the way that they did with The Witch, the way that they did with The Lighthouse, and was like, no, we're going all in on the setting. Like the only one who was like speaking in that bizarre ass language was Nosferatu. If every character were speaking in some weird ass, I don't know, Plague-Garrett language, that would have been really fascinating.
Sure. Yeah, it's like it was attempted with the, you know, constant use of, which I can only guess at this point is an ancient form of, you know, Transylvanian or whatever the case, right?
Yeah.
Someplace in the Carpathian Mountains, Romanian, you know, type of dialect.
Yeah. I like the gypsies. They were cool.
The gypsies were awesome.
Yeah. I feel like you and me would be hanging out with the gypsies.
Oh, absolutely. We'd be part of the gypsies for sure. We'd be leading. It just didn't necessarily hit because perhaps it was the subtitles. You know, what if he would have just went without the subtitles? You know, that would have been even more, possibly more interesting, because then you really have to research, and then obviously language is just a recreation of physical enactment. So, you know, and then Nosferatu's a silent movie anyways, the original. So I think it could have worked. Fuck the subtitles. There was even a scene that I didn't like when they go to the Sisters of Agatha. It's so funny when I'm like in one of the Jared to Jareds, we're using Dracula as a metaphor. And I'm like, yeah, man, you just got to go escape Dracula's castle, get to the Sisters of Agatha. And you're like, wait a minute, what are you? I'm lost the metaphor. But anyways, there's a scene. He gets to the Sisters of Agatha and freaking, there's an interpreter there when they're like praying to him. And I just didn't like it. Like, I kind of get it. It's like, okay, cool. Like, he's an Englishman. But they're the sisters. They don't give a shit. You know, they're old, crazy German nuns. You know, they're just trying to free this man of his freaking demonic, you know, possession, essentially.
Right.
All that being said, I do want to sort of jump back to the yin and the yang here. I do want to comment on, it's funny how the alchemy thing was the one thing that kept me like so interested and like,
okay, you know, so you got that too.
So deep into it. There's a scene where Defoe is like, or not Defoe, who's the doctor?
Oh, that doctor. I don't know the character, but yeah, the doctor.
Which is cool because that's the father and the witch. The guy who plays the doctor.
Cool.
Yeah. There's a scene where he's like, you must understand, you know, talking about William Defoe. He's like, he's followed the way of Paracelsus and Aristotle.
That was sick. Yeah.
Is the alchemy, you know, fucking so awesome, you know, and then going to like this idea of the occult.
Yes.
You know, delving deep into the occult.
Yeah. Yeah. And you and I got into Paracelsus for a minute. So that was cool.
Right. Love that so much. That line. And then they switch to this really awesome scene. I don't really remember what it was, but it was a pretty gothic, you know, aesthetic scene.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but remember your comment last episode on this ethereal realm. Honestly, we've been talking about the ghost realm, the ethereal for how long? The occult?
Our whole lives, man.
Since our whole lives, for many lives.
Many lives.
But we've been focusing on it since before Macbeth or during Macbeth.
Yeah.
I think what's pissing me off is me and you cannot name the place of the spirit realm in reality anymore. Like, I don't know. I think we've never really grasped onto it. We've peeked into that door, but we've never fully like understood and shut the door. You know what I'm saying?
Well, why would you shut the door? Let's open that door full wide.
Well, you know, being able to be like, I know what's in that door. You know what I'm saying? Metaphorically speaking. Because we hit on it with Hamlet.
Yeah.
You know, Ghost of the Father, freaking Macbeth, the witches, now Robert Eggers, Nosferatu, you know, the occult, Paracelsus, you know, all these things actually lead to, if you look at Paracelsus, etc., Aristotle, lead to real science like chemistry, like chemotherapy.
Yes, chemistry grew out of alchemy.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly. So there's some truth in it, right? And not just this metaphorical, you know, saw the ghost of my father, could not be the ghost, could be the ghost, could be a metaphor for my own pain and suffering. I'm talking about literal, ethereal, spirit realm, fucking the occult alchemy. Thoughts?
That realm. So I mentioned this, I think, in the Hamlet episode. I don't remember, maybe Macbeth, but like that, according to Buddhist people, Tibetan Buddhism or shamanic stuff, whatever, any of that spiritual sort of stuff, there's no separation between those worlds, you know, that they're all just different facets of the same reality. So let me put it this way. I was reading in Alejandro Jodorowsky in his book on some of this stuff. He calls it psyche magic, right? So rather than psychotherapy, it's magic in the sense that you're using, in his modality, kind of using different symbolic actions in order to tweak your experience and thus tweak your psyche in a certain way that's going to release something, change how you view something, all of that. So he was literally training with this Mexican curandera, right? And the shamanic healer woman. And he would go in, and one of the things that they would do, which was almost like a gag or something like that, but they would, you know, really set the scene. It was like a performance. So you'd go in and there'd, you know, be all these dim lighting and candles and really kind of spooky and eerie, and the smell of like raw meat, just something bizarre stuff, right? And you go in and you sit in the waiting room, you know, and maybe you hear someone in like the back room who's like screaming as they're being operated on or something, you know, really setting the scene. And then the doctor woman calls you in, you know, and you go, yeah, I have this horrible pain in my back that's been there for years, right? And she'll lie you down on a table. You're lying there on your stomach and put you into an altered state of consciousness, however they go about doing that, you know? And then just the scene, all of it, it's a very magic kind of scene. You're out on the heath with the witches in Macbeth. And then they would take meat, like pig meat and blood, like raw blood and all that stuff, and literally pretend to do a surgery on you. You know, they would take like a knife, and she'd be like Jodorowsky, hand me the knife, you know, and take a knife and like pretend, essentially like scrape something along your back, but enough to create the illusion that she's peeling your skin open. Right. And essentially putting you in a dreamlike state, you know, because it's a really weird experience. Like, why would you? It's a weird experience. So it does something to your brain. It defamiliarizes your brain where you're like, is this a dream? Is this real? And then, based on Jodorowsky's argument, seems to increase the neuroplasticity in your brain, because now you're in this like half asleep, half dream state where your body is actually convinced it's being operated on. So you're using the language of the subconscious. Right. So then you go through this whole process, 6 hours long, of them pretending to do surgery on you. She's saying incantations, singing incantations. Sure. She's on freaking DMT and the spirits are coming through her, like crazy shit. And then you leave. And then according to Jodorowsky, at least, he's like, she was successful. Like so many of these people left pain-free. Right. Or whatever it was that came through. Or like one more example of it, and because he also made a documentary on this, he took some dude who was like, had this terrible fear of death, right? And this fear of death was inhibiting his life. He had depression, all this stuff. So Jodorowsky brings him into the desert, right? In like northern Mexico or something. Brings him into the desert and buries this guy just out in the desert, buries him up to his face, you know? And then puts a glass bowl over his face, right? So his face is protected out in the wilderness. And then he takes all this raw cow meat, steaks and shit, just raw meat, and throws it on top of where the guy's buried. So from this guy's perspective, he's looking down. Yeah, from his perspective, he's looking down and all he sees is butchered meat. So that's going to do something to his brain where he's going to say, like, his brain is going to go, I have nothing to compare this to. I can't compute. What the fuck is this? I'm looking down and all I'm seeing is raw meat. And there's a piece of the brain, the non-logical, non-conscious brain, that's going to be like, what the fuck? I must be dead, right? And then because they're outside in the desert, all these vultures come flying down and are just picking at the meat, which is laid on top of the guy's buried body, but his face is uncovered. So he's looking out and seeing raw meat being picked apart by vultures where his body should be. Right? Weird. You know, very Jodorowsky. The guy freaks the fuck out, of course. You know, and then eventually goes through the whole process. And what they essentially did was instigate the illusion of a near-death experience. And then as we hear from people who have had near-death experiences, not all of them, but a lot of them, go into this other realm. And then they come back, and now the fear of death is gone. And then they live out the rest of their lives with a sense of freedom that they could have never imagined, a freedom to be who they want to be, a freedom to live how they want to live. Nothing can hurt them anymore because they've seen the other side of life, which is death, and it turns out it's not that bad. So Jodorowsky uses these kind of just like art acts to create a symbolic environment that's speaking to the subconscious and helping people overcome fears and pains and all this kind of stuff, you know?
Right. Which is essentially the thesis of Nosferatu.
Kinda, yeah.
Because when he visits her there at the end on the first night,
exactly,
they're talking to each other in the moonlight, right? And he says to her, the only thing I am is your desires.
Manifest.
I'm nothing but your afflictions, right? I'm nothing but fear. And what do they call him? Death. He is death. There she says, in the beginning, I was never so happy as when I looked around and I held hands with death, right? In her dream, she tells Thomas at the beginning of the film. So essentially, she needed to have this sort of near-death experience or full death experience with Nosferatu in order to cleanse not only her soul, but also cleanse the soul of the ethereal manifestation of our own desires, her own desire, right? Mm-hmm. And carnal freaking need and affliction, right? And then she found peace, and so did everyone else.
Exactly, man. So yeah, to answer that question of like, what is that spiritual reality, ethereal reality, dream side of life, death side of life, the other side of life that all these artists seem to tap into and that we've been tapping into in our J2J conversations. It's the symbolic part of our brain, you know, it's that part of our brain that speaks in dream images, you know, it's like, you know, is you could just say, well, it's hallucination, it's not real, it's dreams. And yeah, but if it has an impact in the real world, who cares? You know, it's like you go into a dream space, process some shit, and then you come out happier for it. You know, you hang out with Jodorowsky for a little bit and he buries you alive in the desert, and then weird as fuck, and you do a bunch of strange creative things, and then you come back and you're better for it and it impacts the real world. Well, okay. Apparently it's real.
Right.
You know, is in the curandera that he knew, is she actually, channeling like Hermanito and like, her freaking spirit that would come through and do all this shit. Is she actually channeling it? A spirit external to her? Is she a crazy person? Well, who cares? Because it's having an impact on the real world. So the stuff that we do in the creative world, in the dream world, then has a real life impact. So it's all pretty connected, if you ask me, right?
Sure.
I go to see Nosferatu, obviously like a hallucination, essentially, right? It's like Nosferatu's not real. You go to see this movie and then it makes me cry because something about like Nosferatu as the affliction really speaks to me. And then I cried and felt really wonderful and was like, holy shit, what a weird movie. And now it's real. Okay. So Nosferatu's real for me.
Right.
So,
which is true, which I buy. I completely get that.
Yeah.
Which the metaphorical spirit realm has always been there. I think we've uncovered that. I really do.
Okay. So are you asking if it's like real spirit realm?
Real. I'm talking like as real as this chair, real. Because what kind of like interests me after watching Nosferatu, after the doctor says, he took the way of Paracelsus, Aristotle. There are people that have, and William Dafoe himself in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Disgraced by the college, by society, research, this and that, for actually looking for a tangible other dimension.
Yeah.
Or in all the dimension Y-Files shit that we used to know, in ancient languages, like, ancient Sumerian or something like that, right? How these alchemists throughout history, even sages, what have you, even thinking about the Hawk Doc when he's talking about there would be witches or ghosts, in Shakespeare's realm, that wouldn't have been a surprising thing.
Yeah.
It seems now in our tech age, we discussed this one time with, I think on Being Jared Malkovich, where technology has sort of killed the spirit realm. We've gone so far away from this sort of fourth dimension where it seems we used to be more tapped into via, spiritual practices, this or that, alchemy, drugs, and then now Jodorowsky, guys like that, they're not really, that prevalent anymore, especially not respected in a scientific or academic sense. Does Jared believe in the real spirit realm? I don't know, man. Tangible? Is it real? Is it there?
Do you just want my personal opinion?
Personal opinion.
Okay.
I mean, am I focusing on this too much? I don't want to be a bad interview host here, but I don't know.
Okay. No,
I don't know. I'm just thinking. I don't know. Because right. Am I right? There's these people throughout history that have literally dedicated their entire lives to finding out Nicholas Flamel's freaking Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone, power in the elements,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you hear about all these guys. Yeah. And you hear about all these guys. I mean, Isaac Newton being one of them who they're known for their scientific work, but that dude was wild. He was obsessed with the Bible. I think even maybe did his own translation of it or something.
Right.
But wrote way more about the Bible and spirituality and heaven and angels and all this stuff. Wrote way more about that compared to what he wrote about science, but he's famous for science. Is that because I don't know why? Maybe his scientific work is just more relevant or useful or something, but it's like you can't ignore the fact that one of this Enlightenment era scientist who really like introduced us to the Enlightenment era was also trying to like talk to angels.
Right. Like literally talk to them,
Yeah. Or like this guy, John Dee, who I've heard about, like he was a close advisor to Queen Elizabeth during that era. Right. And same exact thing. He was, and it's all documented. There's books on this guy. It's all documented that he was quite literally trying to conjure angels,
right?
According to him, successfully conjuring angels in order to have conversations with them, and they would tell him what to do politically. And then apparently he was one of the individuals who really creating the fucking colonization of America, you know?
Right.
Like Elizabethan era, like really fucking started leaning into like sending fucking ships over to North America and stuff. Like he was one of the
There's been popes, you know, Pope John the 22nd was an alchemist, you know, actually wrote like Latin laws foreboding false alchemists and praising true alchemists.
Yeah.
So crazy, like, yeah. So, you know, I don't know. It's what do you make of it? I guess I don't really have a question per se, because sure, we could just say, do you believe? No. Do you believe? Yes. Next time.
Yeah, right.
But we're philosophers, right? I mean, come on, let's, I don't know. I just think that, especially in the minds of like guys like Robert Eggers, these visions, you know, and of course we as scholars are always like, oh, well, this is a metaphor for this and that and that. And, you know, Russian oligarch, where's the like literal, because I think there's fear in that. I think there's a manifestation of horror and maybe even a peace and perhaps a gateway out of certain afflictions, modern day afflictions, if we acknowledged that there was a fourth dimensional spirit realm, so to speak, with the lack of words, you know.
Hey, look, and like, you know, I'll put it this way. It's like our society is not in good shape. And, you know, for some reason, I mean, scientific materialism is a new thing. I mean, that's only, you know, 200 years old or something, where we've completely separated from, you know, traditional indigenous religions, and spiritualities and storytelling. And, you know, we've severed our connection to the ancestors, so to speak. Right. We're the first ones who've done that.
Right.
You know, to this degree, rather. I mean, you know, just I'm sure history is vast and wide. I'm sure a lot of things have happened.
Sure.
But we are really the first culture, the first society that's like that fourth dimensional spirit world that you're talking about, for whom we're just like, that doesn't exist. Right. I mean, we're the first largely atheistic culture in that way. Right. I mean, that's new, you know.
Right.
Now, is it a coincidence that at the same time we're also the most anxious, most depressed, most suicidal culture that's ever existed? Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not. You know, maybe having that grounding and that rootedness in spirit actually matters a lot, and we've made a serious wrong turn.
Right.
You know, so whether or not it's real in like that tangible sense, you know, sitting on a chair and, you know, the spirit of Nosferatu is talking to me, like whether or not it's tangible and real.
Right. Because nowadays we would call that a schizophrenia or disassociation disorder. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The impact is real. And I can speak from my own life and my own experience that when I'm engaging in a spiritual practice and some kind of discipline and whatever it is, that I feel happier. You know, it's like whether or not it's real, you know, is the Buddha real? Is Kuan Yin, who's kind of like the saint of compassion in Buddhism, whether or not they're real, I don't care, you know. It's like, but when I'm in communication with these figures, say, I feel happier. Okay, so what's wrong with that? You know, maybe I'm schizophrenic. I don't know, but like whatever, you know.
I don't know, man. I think you're a man of science. I really do. I can't get.
What do you mean?
I can't get you to admit that the Robert Eggers world is real. I just want you to say witches are real and sages and all this crazy shit. Yeah. Because it's not, you know. I don't know. I guess.
Oh, you think no?
I don't. I mean, I really.
You're a scientific materialist, bro.
Maybe it is. You know, I would like. Yeah. I sure would like to think that there's some ancient books out there and some crazy language that none of us really know how to read that have certain secrets to longevity or connecting with your dead loved ones or some other astral physical realm that exists, you know. But I don't know. I think we romanticize it sort of, and I'm being Plato right now. We romanticize it in these horror films, you know, over dramatize our own fears.
Yeah.
And our own, you know, sort of and you know, a lot of like Dracula too is like the demonization of sexuality too, you know, and carnal love
That's
and
interesting.
lust and all this stuff, you know.
Totally.
And if you compartmentalize it or try to categorize it as, you know, while metaphor, yes, we buy, but is there any sort of sense of reality to sages, to your dead father coming back, you know, in his armor and his janitor suit, you know, with a mop and a bucket? It's just never happened. Like, I just think that there would be accounts of it actually happening, and it just never happened. I think maybe we've moved on from things like alchemy and stuff like that because of the realization of the tomfoolery of our own imaginations, right? Not to say I don't love the horror genre or what have you.
Oh, I love horror, yeah.
You know, to say that, you know, Paracelsus, all these people, what they were thinking of, there was any truth to it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Isaac Newton died because he wouldn't stop drinking mercury, because that kept him alive during a plague era. So he thought, oh, word, it was the mercury, right? Dude ended up poisoning himself to death of drinking mercury, you know? Was it? Who knows? I don't know. It was his own little cocktail, but you see where I'm going here? I mean, I don't know. Not to
it's like, I don't know.
Jared listeners,
but also I'll put it this way too, like, all right, reality is weird, right? It's like, let's stay away from the fourth dimension, spirit realm, Nosferatu. Okay. Let's stay away from that for a second. And let's just look at like material reality.
Right.
What is going on? Because this is so weird. This is so weird. Right. Come on.
Sure.
We don't even need to go that deep into it, but it's like, okay, my body is made of billions and billions and billions of cells, which are apparently these pretty autonomous little guys that just like somehow know to come together to form a human body. And then I think that I'm in control of this entire body. So for some reason, apparently, whoever I think I am maybe has control of all these billions of little cells. And then I get to move my hand, but I'm also not in control of it because my skin is constantly regenerating and dead skin flakes off. And I'm not consciously asking myself to do that. My heart is pumping. I'm not asking it to do that. Dogs exist. Those are weird creatures. I don't like it's. This is weird.
Sure, it goes deep. Yeah,
I don't without even going that deep. This is really weird. And then you even have like quantum physics where it's like apparently you have like mirror particles where you can have one particle that for some reason, don't know why, it will link up with another particle, and then you can put them light years apart, but then they're still mirroring each other. If one goes up, the other one goes up, but they're light years apart. The fuck's that about? Right. You know, there's stories about, you know, couples that have been together for 60 years and then one goes traveling and now they're each on the other side of the world. And
now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to, yes, tangible freakiness that's actually out there. Sure.
Yeah. Twins who are separated at birth and then link up when they're in their 40s. And it turns out that they both married women with the same name and both became janitors, right? It's like, what the fuck? What? That's weird. You know, it's like, what is going on here? Right. So it's like, you don't even have to go into freaking fourth dimension, fifth dimension, whatever. The third dimension's weird enough.
Sure.
What the hell is this? You know, what is this? And everyone's got weird stories that they can't explain. You can give me the most scientific person you've ever met and I'll be like, has nothing weird ever happened in your life? And they'll be like, well, there's that one time that, you know, like everyone's had some of these weird experiences. Maybe they're coincidences, synchronicities. I don't know. But again, the fact that we exist is in itself really bizarre, you know, and the more that I do my meditation, spiritual practice thing, the more aware I become of my own surroundings, say. And it seems like my body and my subconscious is much more aware of stuff than my conscious mind is. And the more I connect with my subconscious, the more I'm like, oh shit, I never noticed that before. And it doesn't even have to be a deep thing. It could just be like, oh shit, I've been behaving like in this negative way for 30 years, and I'm just seeing it and like, oh, that's why this never worked out. Oh, this whole time I thought it was because of this, but it was actually because of this. Oh shit. Oh, wow. So Nosferatu, my own afflictions were actually dictating my behaviors, which were dictating the outcomes of my life, and I didn't even realize it. That's weird too, right. You know?
Yeah.
So the third dimension's weird, you know?
It is. It's completely.
We die. Where do we go when we die? That's fucking weird. Sex is bizarre. Sex is bizarre. If you want to step back and just objectively look at sex, it's a weird thing. It's a weird system, you know? Like,
well, the story of Nosferatu, sex, all this stuff becoming one, the lust for blood, this and that wouldn't have even happened without, you know, a third dimensional being creating these bizarre thoughts and events, you know.
Yeah.
Even Shakespeare, you know, this ghostly realm, all this stuff has been created through, you know, throughout history, even the verbal tradition of storytelling.
Yeah.
What have you, you know. In fact, you know, I heard an interesting story recently too that you know, there was, before the Dead Sea Scrolls, there was a medieval copy of Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, the Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a complete edition, really nice, you know, but that was the oldest one they had. So anyways, they end up finding this scroll that's like 1,000 years older than this medieval manuscript, right? Mm-hmm. Of Isaiah. Mm-hmm. And it's a duplicate copy. It's so crazy, like word for word. It's just interesting. Like, it's sort of a, you know, phenomena as well. The Christian, these stories of the religion, right? How did the Bible that should have been destroyed?
Yeah.
You know, according to historically speaking, these manuscripts don't last that long, right? All these things are crazy. Yeah. The preservation of this one particular book.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we could look into, you know, Buddhist stories of miracles, freaking Muslim stories, Christian stories of Christianity, right? Even to this day, of people, you know, we had a neighbor who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. They told her she had 3 months to live. Mm-hmm. This was in 1995. Chick went to her Christian church, you know, praise Jesus, freaking boom. They healed her. Yeah. And, you know, all of the family were like, oh, God, healed. Yeah, right. Shit, that sucks. She's like, I'm not going to seek treatment anymore or whatever. Yeah. And we thought she was a goner. Shit, man. Years later, she's still alive. It's 2024. She's still alive. You know? You know, so I don't know. Is it a mental thing, sort of what you're saying too? If it tangible results in sort of the sugar pill thing, you know, power of persuasion. Yeah. Whatever, what have you. Hey, I think there's absolutely a tangibility to the idea of, right? And I think maybe like a lot of these occult things, where does that root from? This is a question at you. Where does it root from? You know, sacrificing people, freaking sacrificing things to the Dark Lord, wanting to become Prince of Rats, you know, like that one guy when he gets a stake rammed through his heart, you know. Yeah. Where does it root from? Where does like the dark occult come from? Is it rooted simply in power, trying to take ownership or control of this absolutely bizarre freaking third dimensional realm we live in?
Yeah. Well, before we get into that, I also just want to share like the J to J origin story is in itself kind of interesting, you know? Because how did we meet, dude? In fucking like first day of grad school, you know, you walk into class, like, you know, class is about to start or whatever, and you walk in, and there's only one seat left, and it's like the one right next to me, you know?
Right.
And I felt like a resonance, you walked in, I was just like, oh, nice. He seems cool, whatever.
Right.
Because you can tell, it's like you walk into a room, you're like, I'm definitely not talking to that person. That person's
absolutely
cool.
Right.
And then, so you sit next to me and then they're doing like the roll call, attendance. And then, Jared, and then both of us like raise our hand and it's just like, what the hell? It's like, that's funny.
Right.
And here we are doing a podcast called Jare to Jared. It's like,
right.
So what the hell was that? Was that just like coincidence? Could have been, was it some sort of resonance? Was it because we've been friends in previous lifetimes? We've joked about that. Like, I don't, I don't know. I ultimately have no idea. Is it just like a subconscious, here's my quirks and here's that person's quirks. And for some reason they kind of fit well together. So it's just reality is going to shape in such a way that we end up hanging out. Don't know, but.
Right.
But anyway, so there's an experience of it right there.
Love it.
As far as people conjuring, or did you want to add anything to that, or should we?
No, that's a great example. I love
dark
that
being
one.
conjuring. Yeah. Okay, and actually, let's hold off on the dark beings because now another example comes to mind. Again, not from my own life or yours, but the cancer thing, because this is wild, and I was just reading too about the ways in which your emotional state, your inner psyche can create sickness within the body, right? And that's not the only cause of sickness. I mean, sometimes you get cancer. It's like, we live in a toxic environment very often. We're eating food with pesticides. It's all this stuff. Sure. So sometimes it is just scientific material reality.
Right.
That said, in Jodorowsky's thing, he's working with the shamanic woman, right? And Jodorowsky has a friend, this young woman who has like stomach cancer, right? She's an actress in Paris or something. And then Jodorowsky goes, well, hey, come on, let's talk to the shaman. And, like, I know it's weird, but give it a shot. You've tried everything else. You've been on chemo for fucking years and you're not doing well, but give it a shot.
Right.
So she comes in and the shaman woman puts the French woman into a trance, right? And then starts to ask the French woman's subconscious, why do you have cancer? Right? And then the subconscious, she's in a trance. She goes, I'm just so tired. Right? So then she goes, what are you tired of? And she goes, I'm just so tired of working. I'm just so tired of trying. I'm just so tired of living. I don't want to live anymore, And then the shaman woman goes, oh, so that's why you have cancer. You don't want to live anymore. You're trying to give up. Right. And she goes, yes. And then the shaman woman says, oh, it gets really intense. And actually it's breast cancer, not stomach cancer. Because then the shaman woman says, like, why did you want them to cut off your breasts? And then she said something about like I was tired of being of my sexuality in Nosferatu. I was tired of my sexuality. I was tired of my body being sexualized. And I think she was a woman with abuse in her background. And all of this stuff is coming out. I want to die. I want to die. I want to die. And the shaman says, that's why your body is giving you cancer, because you don't want to be here,
Right.
And then the shaman says, at this point, it'll be hard, but we can work with this. We can still work with this, and there is a chance. But if you just want to die, you can just die. And then takes her out of the trance. The session's over, and the woman dies 2 weeks later.
Wow.
Is it just a story? I don't know, but it says
it's crazy because I was expecting you to say, hey, she's still alive to this day, found meaning in life. But
yeah, no.
But no, she died, so it's hard to say whether that was, something tangible or not. But hey, they could be there. It could be, it could absolutely be there. I mean, even when you think about, oh, I got cancer from drinking or from eating or from smoking, this and that. These could be seen as Hamlet vices to get to the undiscovered country. You're just sick of it. You're sick of the world. You're done,
Yeah.
I'm
done.
Then
I'm tired.
These things can manifest within inside you. Right. Exactly. There was I can't remember which pod I was listening to, but the guy had got the flu when he was younger and had paralysis of his legs. One night his nerve endings were shot. The flu attacked his nerve endings and he couldn't walk. He was a paraplegic, and then, through some Christian miracle, whatever, the guy could walk again. so it's just it's a bizarre world. I don't know though. I think what we're trying, I wish we could put an answer to it, and I don't think we ever could.
We can do it.
We can't, bro. We can't. We so can't. I think because we want to say, hey, listen, it's not real. It's not the like fourth dimensional world isn't real. Nobody's actually seen it. There's no Robert Eggers, beautiful girls floating around in the woods, However, we can't say that, right? Because we also don't know whether it's not real or isn't real, because a lot of these weird things do happen within the world, And I also like, going back to the movie, how the whole town got afflicted by this plague of Nosferatu, right?
Totally,
and that we have this sort of collective fear, or what's that word they have it where the whole entire like bunch goes crazy.
Pandemonium?
It's not pandemonium.
Hysteria?
Sort of mass hysteria, right? Where everyone starts believing in this one thing, and then everyone starts getting sick, and boom, it's a collected sort of trauma that's happening, Not to kick it back to Billy Crystal too, but I finally finished that show where he's the child psychologist. And that show was cool. At the end, it turns out that his patient, the young kid, isn't possessed by a devil or anything. He's actually traumatized from their past lives together.
Yeah.
So there was a point, during whatever freaking the 1200s or 1500s where one of the kids jumps in the lake and Billy Crystal is the little kid and doesn't go save her, and that kid dies. And, they have to go back to this place and deal with that trauma later on in life, and way later on in different lives that have gone on, which is interesting to think that you'd be able to. But in that show, there's a point where the kid feels like he's possessed. Then the whole entire ward feels like they're possessed. All the kids start passing out and stuff. Their noses start bleeding. It's this weird, sort of magical thing that can happen within a group, right? This Nosferatu plague that overcomes us. I like that part in the movie. I did.
Yeah. That was really cool. Actually, I wasn't fully thinking about the value of the pandemic in it. That's really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And another thing, because now these people being healed stories are coming through. They're all coming to mind now. But I listened to this podcast. It's called the Aubrey Marcus podcast. He does all spiritual shit. And he had this woman on who wrote this book like 20 years ago. Her name's Anita Morjani. But her experience was that she had cancer in her like 30s. And then she has a near-death experience. She's on the other side. Like she actually flatlined for like 6 minutes or something, right? When she's on the other side, she sees her father who had died 10 years previous. And her father comes up to her and says, you had cancer because you were so deeply repressed. All of your true decisions, all your true, who you actually are, all your true desires, all that kind of stuff were so repressed in order to, be submissive and all this kind of stuff. That created so much tension and repression and anger in your body that it manifested as cancer. And that's what happened, according to her story. The father says, the ghost of the father, Hamlet style. And then he says, you can go back into your body, and having this knowledge, you're on the other side, and you can go back into your body and heal fully, And, she's seeing spirit, she's seeing all this stuff, white light, all that kind of stuff. And then goes back into her body, and then recovers like incredibly quick. And all these doctors are floored. They're like, what the hell? Like she had stage 4 lung cancer. What the hell happened? how'd she recover so quick? And she's telling them all this experience, and all these guys are just like, you're crazy. It was the drugs. It was the morphine. It was this. It was that. That didn't happen. And she's like, well, it's what I saw and I healed. So don't know what else to tell you. And then she said the rest of her life, she didn't have that emotional attachment to being repressed. She was able to just let go of that and live more freely. So,
Crazy.
so again, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the story, you know.
Right. It's a good story. I mean, gives everybody hope, certainly.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of human beings' fates, you know. But it's weird that the manifestation of a disease could also come from this dark realm, you know, this sort of Nosferatu, the Dark Lord, you know.
Yeah, the affliction. You got to clear out the affliction, or else everyone's going to get the plague.
Right.
You know, I mean, was our COVID pandemic a manifestation of some kind of inner energy, some kind of global inner energy, in the same way that the plague in Nosferatu was a manifestation of the inner affliction of Nosferatu? What do you think? Did COVID come through because of our culture so greedy, our culture, you know, something like that, or was it just a total, you know, shitty coincidence?
Yeah. We all started getting sick because, you know, it was a collective, actually.
Yeah, it was the collective unconscious manifesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like this weird freaking mass hysteria. Yeah. And then we were allowing our bodies to give up and die and this and that, you know.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then, you know, some bizarre but kind of hot looking girl gave herself to Nosferatu, and we're all healed again.
We're good now. COVID's over.
See, things like that are interesting to think. And then, as I was saying, then there's people in history, scholars, doctors, well-renowned, you know, individuals throughout history that would then spend the rest of their lives trying to identify and find this other world, right? Yeah. I mean, even that the whole occult moved the rug, you know, with the star and the symbology and all the bizarre ancient language that we used to do, you know. This is part of the human lineage of the collective, you know, our historical collective. And it's just, I don't know, it's interesting that we've tried to tap into sort of this. There's been also, you know, unproven but could be proven, whatever, notions of the existence of a Robert Eggers world, you know. But I think ultimately, from like a philosophical and scholarly perspective, I think we do try to create or tap into these other realms also as a Hamlet way of escapism. Trying to get away from our own reality and existence in the 3-dimensional, you know, to find meaning ultimately, to find a way out. You know, a lot of the alchemists were trying to see God face to face or live forever. The Sorcerer's Stone, you know, Nicholas Flamel, whatever, you know. They're trying to figure out ways in which to treat human affliction, you know, ultimately. So we create something that's greater than us, like God or a Nosferatu or a Dark Lord or something like that. Because then that builds up our own importance and our own power to be able to name something, and then escape the fate of something by being able to control it, by being able to be a part of it. I like how William Dafoe said, I'm just a tourist in this, you know, ethereal world. You've been born of it, you know, and I'm just here to sort of inform you and lead you to the right path of acceptance. Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So is that dark realm actually there? I don't know, but I will say I've gotten a sense that it is.
Right. Right. Robert Eggers, you know. But who's to say there's not some fucking really weird people that have been living in the woods, Robert Eggers style?
Yeah, man.
Practicing this really bizarre ancient form of religion, human religion, that have tapped into some weird thing, you know?
I think that's part of why Albuquerque's so weird.
Sure. Keep going. Not. Say more. Bunch of alchemists in there, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm convinced that just around Albuquerque, there's a lot of weird, freaky stuff going on. You know, a lot of
sure
dark magic practices happening.
Right.
I don't know. You could just feel it sometimes. It's like, okay, like I went to Chaco Canyon, and like Chaco Canyon, it's for listeners, it's ancient ruins there, you know, cliff dwellings and stuff like that. And there's this incredible energy, and everyone agrees. I've never met anyone who went to Chaco Canyon who was just like, oh, it was cool, it was whatever. Like anyone I've ever met who's been there is like, that place is fucking crazy.
Right.
And it's just cliff dwellings. It's a tourist spot, but I've seen other cliff dwellings and they're pretty and fun to look at and interesting to think about. But something about Chaco Canyon, I remember driving in the mesa where like they were doing wild fucking spiritual practices on top of the mesa there. There's evidence of it, archaeological evidence of it. You see it just sticking out on the horizon like a thumb, you know? And it's like, oh shit. Like I remember just driving down this like long rocky dirt road, and then all of a sudden I could see the mesa and I was like, oh fuck. Like I just got chills. Like I don't even know why. It was just like, oh,
right.
Wow, there's something really scary and intense.
Well, there's like petroglyphs of aliens and shit out there. Yeah, and the Chaco people disappeared. Yeah, no one knows where the hell they went. They could have went into the ethereal astral realm, you know.
Yeah,
they could all be with the gods right now. No one knows.
No one knows. And then I remember like we're doing this tour, and then, you know, kind of jumped off the tour to go walk around ourselves. And then like I just found this spot sort of under like a cliff overhang. It was just like looking out into the canyon, and it felt like the entire canyon was screaming, you know. Don't know why, you know. It's like I can't say.
Right. Robert Eggers.
You know, I mean, there is evidence that there was social inequality, that there was a lot of death and human sacrifice and crazy shit going on there. But I was just sitting there and just felt, and I was sober. It's not like I was, you know, even microdosing or something. Like I was with my mom, you know. It's like, and I just sit there and it just felt like this, like, you know, just this canyon was screaming with sadness and fear and pain. Right. And I was like, I got to get out of here. This is crazy. And then right after that, 10 minutes after that, I got stung by a scorpion on my wrist.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And then I was like, Mom, I got stung by a scorpion. And then we're like, oh shit, we should go back up the trail. So we turn around, and then a snake fucking slithers across the trail. Jesus, and I was like, Christ. What the hell is going on here?
Dude, let's get out of here. Or even like, you know, this Midsommar shit that goes on throughout history, you know. Listen, I have this theory. Okay. Just came to me. There had to have been a time in history where somebody was like, cool, we're hungry or something, right? Or things are going well in the village. Let's kill Tom, sacrifice him to the gods, gun him up, fucking throw him down some stairs and see what happens, you know? So they do it, and then boom, something positive must have happened, right? I don't know. There must have been some sort, because you wouldn't go on continuing to kill people, because Tom's family would have been like, bro, you killed my husband for no reason. Nothing happened, you know?
Yeah.
Boom, something, right? Like maybe back in the ancient times, or some crazy, you know, through these weird ancient books, they must have tapped into something, man. Or else, why would you continue to do that? Why would it continue to become such a collective psychosis where it wasn't just, you know, sort of the dance fever where everybody is dancing to death for a week, but a generational thing where it was continued on for, you know, hundreds of years, arguably.
Yeah.
these very bizarre, what we would call bizarre practices of trying to tap into what we think is not a real realm, but they obviously believed it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's get Robert Eggers on the pod. I'd like to hear his thoughts on the witch and the lighthouse, because the lighthouse is very much a manifestation of madness too, you know.
Yeah, well, hey, it is. Yeah, that movie is so weird, but well, hey man, to put you in that position of knowledge bearer, okay, you were in a metal band for years, you know, writing these songs and singing on stage, you know, and I saw a couple of videos of you from back in the day playing, and I remember saying to you like, oh, you went into another world. You were on stage and you were a performer who would drop into another world, and I could see that you were the song, you know, you weren't, you know, Lilly Rose Depp, you know, just where there's a separation between the actors overshadowing the performance or something, or like you were Laurence Olivier, whoever, like dropping fully into the role, you know, it's like you
could freaking put a needle through my arm. I wouldn't have felt it, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So you were dropping fully into the song, you know, into the performance of the song. Sounds to me like you were going to another world. What was the experience? You know, you want to talk to that?
Oh, sure. It's something I have always tried to manifest ever since it was taken away from me through my own drives for the tangible reality of this world, right? It was lost, you know, it was sort of back to the being Jared Malkovich, Johnny Mnemonic, you know, losing my connection to my ancestors, you know. And I've always told people it's something that cannot be bought. You cannot purchase the feeling you get when you're, you know, performing out there, sort of this crazy, you know, cosmic metal core out there, freaking raging it, you know, with everybody, with your ancestors and the gods, you know. It's very much a manifestation, I would say, of this fourth dimensional place that we're trying to, you know, grasp onto in the J to J realm.
So you've been playing coy this entire situation then, because look, you literally just said you're all like, is it real? Is it not real? I don't know, man. What do you think?
Hey, I'm trying to get it out of you, right? I'm a keeper. No, just
and all of a sudden, you know, you're all like, oh yeah,
that's true.
I was channeling the gods and the ancestors,
loving it.
Yeah. Yes. So what the hell? So there's your answer. You know, it's like, is it real? Is it tangible? Well, you literally just told me yes. You know,
right. Hey, we've been trying to find an answer from the beginning of the pod. I think we just found it, you know. J to J. It is, yes, it's real. Yeah. But you know, I think there's levels to the reality of the situations, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
But hey, I like you were saying too with the Jodorowsky, with, you know, kicking it back to the movie with death, the symbol of death and passion and affliction, you know, Nosferatu. It's very much real, right? The manifestation of something that's beyond us, beyond what we can see, beyond the chair in front of me, right? The computer that we're talking on, you know, even technology itself, there's this sort of unknown right now, right? Do you know how you can see me and hear me right now, even though you're on the freaking eastern seaboard, right?
No, this is weird. Yeah.
It's completely bizarre. I'm staring at this weird square on my desk, you know, You're here, right? We were watching PBS special the other day as if you were here. It's sort of an astrogliding technology itself. Me and you, sure, there's some alchemists or contemporary shamans that could tell us exactly the inner workings of how this might be working, right? It would still be bizarre. And totally. It's something we're not understanding, but we're taking it for granted as if it's a reality because it's something that is here. It's now, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think if we just stop to really recognize the eggers around us, hey man, I think it's a little bit more tangible than we expect, you know?
Yeah. And And look, okay, using the technology example, it's like even that, if you just keep asking why, you get to a point where reality breaks. Cause it's like, well, how does a light bulb work? Electricity, right? Okay. Well, what's electricity? It's a little current of heat and energy and particles. I don't know. Well, what's heat? Well, I don't know. It's when like atoms move fast rather than slow, you know?
Right.
Okay, well, what's atoms and how come it looks like light when they move fast or something? Well, I don't know. No one, they just do, you know? It's like you get to a point with these questions where it's like the most intelligent, well-researched scientist would just be like, that's just how it is.
Right, right.
Electricity just does that. We don't know why. It just does it.
They're
We've learned
just
how to use
our
it.
radio waves. They are waves.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just our waves around, and we've learned that we can use those waves to transmit sound across miles and miles.
Sure.
But we don't know why there are waves.
You know, going back to the Mark Twain thing, the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, when the Connecticut Yankee goes back in time to King Arthur, you know, they think he's Merlin.
Oh yeah,
but all he has is technology, like, at the time, contemporary technology, you know, and that's sort of us too, like a chemist or astronomer. We could essentially be like, oh shit, this guy's Merlin,
yeah.
This tech nerd freaking creating all this shit. Cell phone, what the fuck, but really what it ultimately is too is it's inside of us as well, right? It's an evolution of the species. I might be getting too far off track here, but I think it's really a representation of growth and movement as well. This sort of the more we create the fourth dimensional realm is also a representation of our future as a species, and our contemporary moment of what we foresee, right? Even Johnny Mnemonic, we went from Bram Stoker thinking of a guy in a castle to a dolphin, right? On VR in a castle of Lotex.
Yeah. Another one comes to mind, like a weird synchronistic kind of event. I remember August 2020. Met this girl on Hinge, right? And for like 2 weeks, it was so romantic, it was really powerful connection. And then she was going back to California or something, right? And it was wild. It was a really intense connection, just like a fiery spark between me and this person, right? And during that 2 weeks, we like made this art piece together. We would just be hanging out and drawing on this shared canvas kind of thing, And after she left, I was so sad. I was so sad, and I put this canvas in my closet and was like, I'm never looking at that again, And then like a month passes and there's like no contact, whatever, And I was like, I need to let go of this. So I take the canvas out and I rip it up, cathartic moment, rip this thing up. I'm going to throw it out. And I could feel like this energy from the canvas, And then the girl calls me the very next day, which just felt, I don't know, maybe it was just coincidental or something, but I was like, wow, there's this shared creation, this art piece. And then I destroyed it. And then the other person who was participating in making this art piece calls me immediately,
Right. I remember. Yeah.
Which just seemed kind of like, and I don't know, to me, it seemed very, synchronistic and wow, that's weird.
A manifestation of something, right?
Yeah.
There, right? What dreams may come, not to go back to Hamlet, but
love Hamlet.
Once rest to death, freaking what dreams may come, Final thoughts on Nosferatu?
Yeah, last thing.
Also the Maharaja Steve's and the like June 18th, and then Ash was born on like June 18th or something like that.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, that's a cool one too.
Yeah.
Maharaja Steve's. So yeah, last thoughts on Nosferatu. Yeah, my whole thesis on it was like, I love the alchemical stuff. You have Ellen, who's like the anima, Jungian term, the anima, and she opens up fully to the darkness that is Nosferatu, and that's how he ends up being killed, you know, in the light of awareness and openness.
Right.
You know, we talked about Hamlet, Jesus, like taking on, receiving fully the karma, and then it's through fully receiving it that it dissolves and dies in the light of consciousness. And I felt like that's exactly what was happening in Nosferatu, and I thought that was so powerful. You take the affliction, the inner affliction, the shadow, whatever it is, you open fully to it, and then it dissolves and it's gone.
Right. No, I like that. It's kind of like going back to the Dark Crystal, where our essence isn't just happiness, right? Our essence is our fear, our afflictions, our pain. You know, that's what the emperor wanted to drink. You know, and it's about becoming one. You know, that which was separated and done and undone will be whole again and be one, right?
Yeah.
Same with Alan and Nosferatu. Same with our own sort of ethereal afflictions and pains, and it's about becoming one with it, right? Because if we think about Nosferatu himself, the Count, and also, you know, the Rat Prince who ends up getting killed with a stake in his heart, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking also of Beauty and the Beast and a lot of these stories throughout history. You know, we so much time demonize our fears, fear of death, our fear of power, our fear of this or that, you know.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is actually embrace these things so we can find peace, because it's all of us. You know, we're never going to purge completely our pain, our anger, our fear, our, you know, the only way to live with it and come to a place of peace is by embracing with it, spending the night with it, letting it suck your blood for till the sunrise, till the cock crow, you know, and then we'll finally find peace, right? So
yeah, exactly.
That being said, I think it's one of Robert Eggers' worst movies. There was no too much connection for me in the story.
Yeah.
I don't think other than Thomas, I think he was my favorite, weren't really connecting with their characters that well. It was sort of a deep over dramatization and sort of a copy of Nosferatu, the original Dracula, 1990s Dracula, whatever. A lot of this was sort of an homage to a lot of movies that were made before. So, you know, I just hope Robert Eggers doesn't, you know, his time has come and his future films aren't sort of like going downhill, which a lot of artists do, you know, happened to Thomas Pynchon, etc. So,
yeah, that's true.
It's fine. It happened to Tarantino, you know, happened to Scorsese, freaking Killers of the Flowers Moon, what have you. But, you know, other than that, I think it was great imagery. Certainly freaked me out at times. A lot of people say, oh, this is just, it's all sex, you know, freaking this and that. You see Nosferatu's dongo once, you know, it's not a biggest deal. The whole thing isn't sex. Honestly, there's only like 1 or 2 sex scenes in the whole entire movie. It was like more. It was more about, you know, possession and like awesome, really bizarre imagery.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think what most interested me, what you're saying too, is this sort of, you know, history and historical romanticization of the occult, of sort of the Ninth Gate, that Johnny Depp movie, to connect it with Lily Rose, where, you know, we have nowadays these rich people trying to collect these old archives of the Necromonica and ancient Sumerian, you know, spirit realm texts, and alchemists spending their entire lives trying to discover the wonders of the earth and the astral plane and the astral realm, you know?
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's theatrical, right? And it's dramatized, but hey, I think that kept me interested in the movie for sure. And in the rest of it. That being said, was it my favorite? No, but that's okay, right? I think anytime you approach and try to recreate something, even as Kenneth Branagh, you know, and Charlie Rose, his Frankenstein just didn't hit with audiences, you know, as well as he thought it would, because when you take on these sort of categorical, everybody knows stories, it is hard to connect on this deeper level, like The Lighthouse, like what The Witch did, because he is still sort of a low tech in those times, and those stories are a low tech origin as well, metaphorically speaking. So, that being said, it was great watching a movie on our watching a movie solo. Nosferatu got me jumping a couple times, and I love Robert Eggers, just the whole tone of his movies all together, it hit for me. I like the Count and the Russian dude, and the maggots and shit. It was cool. It was dark. Do I think things jumped? Of course, they tried jumping the dinner scene. They jumped the scene. Okay, when homie goes into the graveyard and like lays with his wife.
Oh,
and they're just like, let's burn him. Was he even dead? I think he was asleep. Like they there was nothing that connected it to fear or like something bad happened to him, right? William Dafoe's just like, oh, we got here too late. You better burn him, the flames were. And it was just like, I don't know, like in the 90s, Keanu Dracula, that scene where Jonathan goes and visits, his dead, whatever, the dead aunt or wife or Lucy, that's one of the most horrifying, beautiful, and like coolest scenes Francis Ford Coppola in the world, and in the book it's pretty wild too. In this one, it was like he goes all drunk, lays with his wife, and then they show up and they burn him to death. There was like, no, he didn't get bit. There was no like, she didn't start kissing him back. Like she should have started kissing him back in that scene, to make it be like, oh shit, this chick's still alive. There was nothing like, oh shit about it. Like there were a lot of those scenes that disconnected me, and therefore I didn't like the movie as much. But
dude, that was funny. I was like, it was like, wait, why'd he die?
Right. Right.
I get it. There was like a transgression. It was necrophilia. It was freaky. It was terrifying. Sure. But it was like, wait, why'd he die?
Right.
Like, there was no like nothing happened that would make him die.
Totally. There was no bite.
I guess he was sick. I guess he was sick. He didn't seem that sick.
He was fine. Like he was the one guy that didn't get the plague,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're burning him to death, I don't know. There's just a lot of that too, of like, it was like, wait a minute, you just kind of glossed over that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of glossing in this movie.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Jareds, thank you for listening. Follow, rate, and tell your friends. The Jays will be back next time, and always remember,